It's Kelly Shaw, Rocky Mountain Sasquatch Organization. I'm going to take you through some recent events of some Bigfoot sightings in this area. I could have sat home comfortably and did a podcast on a computer. I want to take you guys there and I want to show you around. Right now I'm overlooking Bear Lake. I'm at a popular overlook spot. Behind me, and I'm going to drive you guys over there, is the summit. Several years ago, a deer hunter got ran out of the woods by an aggressive Sasquatch there. This area, this surrounding area, has Bigfoot sightings that go back to the time of the settlers. You know, over 100 years of Bigfoot sightings. And I come to this area because of the dozens and dozens of Bigfoot sightings in the area in recent years. I know of several people that have had Bigfoot sightings here. These recent events I want to go over started with a video by a couple of deer hunters coming down from their deer hunting camp not too far from here, and I'm going to take you guys there. That happened on October 24th. It was the rifle hunts. The driver did not believe in Bigfoot. They were coming down off a Swan flat road and could see across into the sinks, and the Bigfoot was making its way along a dry creek bed towards a freshwater spring. His son filmed it. He stopped and thought that it was some crazy dude that wanted to get shot, dressed from head to toe, fingertip to fingertip in brown and black. And he was just thinking, what's this guy doing? He's gonna get shot. It's a half hour before dark and it's the hunt. Okay, right up in front of me is the summit area, and below the summit is what's called the sinks. Now, the sinks of Utah, and we're right along the Idaho-Utah border. As a matter of fact, that Bear Lake, half of it's in Utah, half of it's in Idaho. These sinks, as far as I know, have the coldest temperature ever recorded in the lower 48. Broke the record a couple of years ago that it stood for, from what I understand, for over 100 years. And I don't know if that's changed over the last couple of years, but these sinks hold the cold air for whatever reason. Okay, those trees across the way off to our left, that's where a deer hunter got ran out several years ago. But I want to take you guys through a string of events that happened over like 6-7 weeks in this area. And it started off with film footage. Yeah, the guy's son knew it was something unusual and filmed it. And then several days later, we come back and the witnesses did a recreation. They got a guy out there that was 6 feet tall, 220 pounds, in the path of where the Bigfoot was walking, and the Bigfoot just dwarfs him. The Bigfoot's a good head or two taller, a foot or two taller. It's twice as wide and twice as thick as this guy. And I will leave in the description of this video links to everything in order that they happen, so you guys can go see these for yourself. But I wanted to walk you guys through all of this. This is the North Sinks, is what it's called. And it was walking on the dry creek bed to the left. That night it snowed pretty well. It snowed and rained. And so when we got up here, we were having a hard time finding Bigfoot tracks because they'd been pretty much washed away. So there wasn't any immediate evidence except for the video. And I see Swan Flat Roads up ahead. Yeah, they had a deer hunting camp. They've been doing this deer hunting camp for like 35 years. And this guy and his son had to go down to Garden City, I believe it was, by Bear Lake. And it was just before dark when they saw that. And they stopped, and he was thinking, what the heck is that guy doing? And his son filmed it. And that's off to our left over there. And my theory is the Bigfoot got pushed out of the trees by hunters up there bushwhacking because the rifle hunt was in full swing. And then this dirt road's called Swan Flat Road. And that's where they were coming down and saw it, so they pulled over for a second. He didn't believe in Bigfoot and thought it was some crazy guy, the driver, and they had to be at a meeting down in Garden City, so they had an agenda. They had to be somewhere at a certain time, so they just weren't going to sit and stare at it. And he didn't believe in Bigfoot. I think he believes in Bigfoot now, after we did the size comparison and everything. They were back up in there and filmed it across the way. Yeah, that way. It was heading in the direction of our freshwater spring, and it had been pretty dry. It snowed and rained that night. After we inspected the area, Jenny said it's heading in the direction of Beaver Canyon. And we have camped many times back there because of the Bigfoot sighting reports that come out of the area. We've done a lot of investigations there, and that's not very far from here. It's just a few miles. Later that day, Jenny and I headed back in there and just searched, and towards the end of the day, we found Bigfoot tracks. As a matter of fact, I come back with some casting material and casted one of those Bigfoot tracks. And that's the direction the creature was going. It's exactly 3 miles from here if you do a straight line on Google Maps where I cast those tracks, and I'm going to take you there. And we did that on October 31st. They got a hold of me late October 30th, and I come straight down here October 31st with Jenny, and we did it unannounced. We didn't tell them we were coming, and I was shocked to see them here with walkie-talkies trying to get one of them in position to do the size comparison, and it made me feel a lot better. They were looking for answers. I mean, if they had set something up and didn't even know I was coming, why would they be here looking for answers? They were also looking for footprints and doing the size comparison, so we jumped right in and helped. And I'm the one that cut the video of him standing out there in the path of where the creature walked. And I feel like it was spot on. He was standing exactly where the creature had walked through. Well, the creature's walking this direction, and it's walking in the direction of Beaver Mountain, Beaver Creek, Beaver Canyon. Well, I come back a couple of days later, cast the footprint just before dark. It actually got dark on me, so I really couldn't look around anymore. It was like after work. I come up after work during the weekday, and then Derek and I come back a couple of days later because the footprints were going into the forest, and there was another storm rolling in, and I wanted to get up here and take a look around before that storm come in. As a matter of fact, it started raining and snowing on Derek when we left. So we got there just in time, and we found dozens of footprints. The crazy thing is we found evidence of 2 different size Bigfoots, or their tracks, 2 different size. I know the guy only filmed one, but in the direction it's going 3 miles, we found evidence of 2 different sized tracks. One set of tracks was around 15 inches and the other one around 17. And I can't say exactly. A footprint is the damage it does to the ground. It doesn't necessarily mean it's exactly the size of the Bigfoot's foot. So some will be a little bit smaller with than others. I mean, sliding, you name it. Sometimes it'll be a little bit bigger, but consistently one set was around 15 and the other one was around 17. Derek and I did that on November 7th. I get home and a guy has messaged me that some people put on Instagram that were camping 3 miles south of there in Franklin Basin. They were camping and they had a Bigfoot sighting. And that's the same day Derek and I was down there finding all those prints. Of course, we're finding the prints after the fact something's been there. Just because we're finding foot tracks doesn't mean that it's right there. But 3 miles south of where we're documenting these Bigfoot tracks, people see a Bigfoot. So 3 miles from the sinks to here, and Beaver Creek's coming up. I'll drive back to the canyon road. I'm not going to be able to go up where we cast it today because of the snow, but I can give you guys an idea. Yeah, and people are going to Beaver Mountain right now for skiing, snowboarding, and then a lot of people are up here snowshoeing, cross-country skiing, and snowmobiling right now. Three miles, I can walk 3 miles in an hour. And I've done it before. So 3 miles for an animal, for a creature that's like its habitat, 3 miles is nothing. See people with their trailers up here snowmobiling. The snow just barely got deep enough over the last week that people can start snowmobiling. Okay, that dirt road's right there off to the right between those 2 signs that goes back into the Beaver Creek. Doesn't even look like people are snowmobiling back there. I think they're sticking down to the valley for all of that. Alright, and there's the Beaver Mountain Ski Resort right there in front of me. I'll go up to their parking lot and flip around, and then I'll take you guys down to Franklin Basin, where on November 7th people spotted a Bigfoot the same day I was up here documenting Bigfoot tracks. I hope you guys enjoy this as opposed to a podcast. I could sit at home in my comfy little office and explain all this, but that's kind of boring. I'd rather take you guys to the location. Wow. A lot of people up skiing and snowboarding today. I always wonder why there isn't very many Bigfoot sightings at ski resorts, because I travel around to Bigfoot sighting locations and there's a lot of sightings near the resorts, but I really don't get them from the resorts. I mean, there are the one-offs once in a while. Like I know there's been some Bigfoot sightings by skiers like up at Mount Hood, Oregon and stuff, but it's pretty rare. And maybe the reason it's rare is because, you know, people are dressed head to toe in different types of ski outfits, and if you'll notice, some of these people are dressed in black head to toe, and then your hats will give you the domed head. So, you know, just like the hunter seeing the Bigfoot that they filmed down in the sinks, he automatically thought it was a person. Why not? It's got a person's shape. Now, I don't think the Bigfoot follows any type of rule book that a lot of people have for the creature. You know, people are like, oh, it don't go near roads, it don't go near neighborhoods, it don't go near homes, it don't, you know, Bigfoot, I found out studying Bigfoot sighting reports, Bigfoot's gonna do what Bigfoot wants to do. And most of your sightings happen from the roadway. Road crossings, or people seeing it off of the road, like the people that filmed it off the Swan Flats. And then, like Jackson, Wyoming, for instance, that's not a town, that's like a small city. There's been a couple of Bigfoot sightings at night right down in town. I mean, of course, Jackson's surrounded by endless miles of rugged forest and mountains, but I don't think that Bigfoot read the rule book that he couldn't come down into town for whatever reason. Dumpster diving, I don't know, maybe it's the quickest way from point A to point B for it, but there are a lot of Bigfoot sightings in this area where it crosses the road. And one of those, Franklin Basin, where the people saw it on November 7th, finding Bigfoot several years ago, they investigated a Bigfoot sighting where a plow truck driver, plowing in the wintertime, had it cross the road in front of him, and the size estimate comes in at 9 feet tall on that one, because the plow truck driver said it turned and looked at him and was eye to eye with him, and him sitting up in his big plow truck puts his head in eye level about 9 feet. So yeah, that's where we're headed now. I showed you the Beaver Creek area. The foot tracks that we found and recorded on video, where I pulled over and showed you up Beaver Canyon where Beaver Creek goes, that was well over a mile up in that canyon. Okay, and this was really weird. Derek and I get back to the vehicle as it's starting to rain and snow after documenting probably a couple dozen Bigfoot tracks in the dirt in the woods. And something's running through the forest to the south across Beaver Creek from us. And even if I had had my camera in hand, I'd already put it in my vehicle, I doubt I could have got it turned on in that time. You know, I saw the creature running full speed for 3-4 seconds through the thick forest. Now, I'm not going to call it a Bigfoot, but it was tall, dark brown, and hauling ass. It was taller than an elk or a moose, if that makes sense, and it wasn't long, because I saw it through a few clearings. It was running, and you know, I'm thinking, yeah, maybe that's the Bigfoot that we're tracking and we're here to find, and got the camera on and zoomed in there, and then Derek and I observed the location that it took off to for quite a while before we finally got off the mountain. We needed to get out of there before we got stuck in the soft mud, snow, rain. Plus it was getting dark. So yeah, that was amazing hearing the same direction that thing was going. 3 miles, Franklin Basin. And us back in there tracking it, we may have got them to evacuate the area if they were in there. Okay, so they saw him at Franklin Basin, and then it's quiet for the next 3-4 weeks. And 36 miles to the south, sounds like a long ways, but not really. And as a matter of fact, where it was saw at Dry Bread Hollow, and Derek and I already established there was 2 individuals here. Dry Bread Hollow, a guy comes face to face with 2 Bigfoot that he estimates around the 8.5 mark, 8.5 feet tall. There's a seasonal gate there that closes like mid-November, but people will go around that on their 4-wheelers, side-by-sides, and then in the winter they go around it on their snowmobiles. Well, his son had a hunter safety shooting test he had to do to pass hunter safety. So he took him to a safe place down in Dry Bread Hollow. And they did that. On the way back, he thought he saw a black bear, stopped. And he felt comfortable. He had a sidearm on him. And black bear usually run from you. Very rare that they come after you unless you surprise them, especially a mother with cubs. But he wanted a better look, so he walked up in the woods, and it wasn't a black bear. Big old Sasquatch standing there staring at him. And they stared at each other for about a good 20 seconds, he says. And you guys can watch his sighting report where we interview him at the location. But it finally breathed out with a big old huffing noise. And that's when he backed up and drew his firearm, and the second one stepped out of cover in front of the other one as if to protect it. Here's Franklin Basin, where the other sighting was. And a straight line from where we found the tracks is only 3 miles. And right here across the road, just across a ways a little of this hill, is where Bobo ran across the road to reenact the snowmobile driver's deal. So, I mean, this isn't a one-off. Bigfoot seen here a lot. Yeah, the people are camping back in here. And this time of year, they keep this parking lot, this first parking lot, kind of cleared out for the snowmobilers and all that. You would think that snowmobilers would see Bigfoot more often, but they're loud. You can hear a snowmobile from miles away. Yeah, the people were camped back in there. There's a lot of camping spots along this road back there. Every once in a while, up in these areas, a snowmobiler will send us pictures or videos of tracks that they find back in these areas in the wintertime. So even though the snowmobilers aren't having sightings, which makes sense, the creature has plenty of warning that you're coming on one of those things. And people on side-by-sides, I mean, they still have sightings once in a while, but the creature has plenty of warning. But yeah, I've seen some compelling footprints by snowmobilers. Alright, across the way is where the Bigfoot was coming from, and it ran into Franklin Basin where we just came from, where Finding Bigfoot did the reenactment. Okay, that way, across the mountains, on the other side of this mountain, there's Hardware Ranch. Past Hardware Ranch is the Monte Cristo, and then the Dry Bread Hollow area where there's lots of sightings. Finding Bigfoot actually did an investigation on Hardware Ranch. In my opinion, best vocalizations they've heard. They went back there at night on snowmobiles and did some of their screams that the show's famous for, and they got some of the best response vocalizations I think I've ever heard on the show. Okay, I have driven on dirt roads back in these mountains on the left, all the way to here. Without having to cross pavement. The road that I'm on right now is called Highway 89. Goes through several states. And I don't know what its nickname is in other states, but in Utah we call it the Mountain Road. Because Highway 89 pretty much winds its way through the mountains. And there are a lot of Bigfoot sighting reports of it crossing pavement. I don't think Bigfoot can live its life without having to cross a paved road once in a while to get to resources that it needs different times of year. Okay, a lot of people, talk about Bigfoot migrating, Bigfoot hibernating. I don't think they migrate here in this part of Utah. They may move around a little bit, but they're spotted all winter long. As a matter of fact, I get more sighting reports in the wintertime in Utah than any other time of year except for during the fall deer hunts. Seems like during the big game hunts, a lot more people in the woods, off trail, pushing the creature around. Seems like I always get sighting reports then. And then also get them in the wintertime. I think the snow may drive the creature down lower into the valleys. I mean, last year and the year before, Provo and Spanish Fork and America Fork. Okay, I'm trying to make a case that the same two Bigfoot Derek and I were tracking, and Jenny, on October 31st, November 7th, the sighting on November 7th, I think they kept heading south through the mountains, and 4 weeks later, almost 4 weeks later, Matthew Anderson comes face to face with them. He backed away as the second one stepped out, and he said the second one was older and thicker in the waist than the other one. They were both mostly black, he says, really dark. And he said the older one had gray throughout it, especially where the beard would be. And he says it was balding. It had a widow's peak. It had a really thick midsection. The other one, the younger looking one, it had a thin waist and a thick chest, thick shoulders. Now, if one of those two were one of the ones that got caught on the Sinks video, I think it was the younger one, because examining that video left and right, that one has a thin waist, really nice thin waist, flat stomach in my opinion, and then thick chest, thick shoulders. Okay, the reason I believe that they may have traveled the 36 miles south from here is, look how popular the winter activities are here. They may know that, hey, let's just get out of the area, that there's not as, there is winter activities going on where he spotted it, but not as much. It's not as easily accessible to the masses, let's put it that way. Because it's a seasonal gate that locks off just thousands and hundreds of thousands of acres from the masses. And that's an area that we study because the dozens of Bigfoot sightings there. I know 7 people personally that have saw Bigfoot in that area where Matthew Anderson saw him on December 5th. Okay, he backs up to his four-wheeler, or side-by-side, jumps in and takes off. I'm sure it scared the hell out of him. You know, 2 giant creatures. Okay, he gets down to the parking lot past the gate and he messages me. And I'm already on a hike that day. And I get down to my car and I saw that I had a message about 40 minutes ago. And I check it and he's telling me he just barely saw a Bigfoot. So I text him, drive down to a gas station, get a text back from him, and then call him. And then he goes on to tell me what happened, and Jenny and I head straight over. It's like, he was telling me, he's like, I've got plans tomorrow, but yeah, Jenny and I don't have a side-by-side to drive around the gate. But we were just going to park in that parking lot. We were just going to walk past the gate and walk as far as, you know, we felt comfortable and look around. I mean, someone just saw a Bigfoot and that's what we do. You know, and he's like, I can take you guys back there tomorrow. I got plans. I'll see if my wife will let me out of the plans. And I was like, okay, cool, but we're heading over there right now. And like, right now, he talked to his wife and she let him come back and he took us back there. And this is so cool, where he had walked up into the woods and then backtracked down. We saw the evidence of that, exactly as he told me twice, because I interviewed him twice. Once over the phone that you guys didn't get to hear, and then when we showed up in person right where it happened, we interviewed him. And if you guys see me in the video, I'm dancing around. I just want to get up into the woods and look around, but we need to get his report documented for y'all. It's not very often that you have a witness that's willing to go on camera or give his full name. You know, most want to stay anonymous, just like the guys that filmed the Sinks Bigfoot, and I don't blame them. Just the personality type. Some don't want to be pestered by the naysayers, and others don't give a crap. I don't give a crap. Well, anyway, Jenny and I go up and start finding the tracks. And the fresh ones that we're able to measure, we're finding some that are right around 15 inches and some that are right around 17 inches. That matches up with what we were finding over by the Sinks and Beaver Creek in the Franklin Basin area. You know, as rare as Bigfoot is it the same 2 Bigfoot? So it gets filmed 3 miles away from that tracks, then 3 miles away from the tracks, another sighting, and then 36 miles south. You know, maybe that is the migration. Small migration. I still consider them in the same area. Alright, and this is the crazy thing. We find fresh Bigfoot tracks, and where he told me where he saw the one that just stared at him, and he didn't even know the other one was there till he drew his firearm, and then the older one stepped in front of the one that he was having the staring match. So obviously they knew his firearm was a threat, and it looks like the older one was ready to take a bullet for the younger one if it needed to. You know, I understand why Matthew drew the firearm. He thinks he's looking at a monster, and then it huffs And he said you could see the air coming out of its nostrils as it let out a big huff of air. And that's when he drew, and then the other one he didn't even know stepped out in front. Well, I get back up in there and I can see the tracks, and I can see the shuffle area where it steps in front of the younger one and everything. So crazy. And then something else that I noticed is when they were traveling in this deep snow, a lot of this snow went up to our knees, and in some places it was hitting Jenny right up at her waist. You know, coming up onto my thighs. In the deep of the snow, they were stepping in each other's tracks. It's like one, I don't know if they were taking turns doing it or just one does it, but one's breaking snow and they're stepping almost exactly in each other's tracks. Every once in a while, one would off step to the left or the right or whatever, you know what I mean? Because I was like, well, there's two, but when they're traveling, it looks like there's only one, but they were using each other's tracks. Okay, those are the fresh ones. We found evidence of old tracks, those new ones, and in between. It looks like those two creatures had been in the area for at least a week, traveling back and forth or just hanging out in the area. But I've never seen so many Bigfoot tracks in a single location in my life. And of course the snow helps. That makes them stand out. You know, there was hundreds of tracks, and you guys can go look at the video for yourself. I mean, we didn't film every single track that we saw. We got most of them and zoomed in on trackways that you know went on for hundreds and hundreds of yards. We saw trackways parallel in the road in the aspen grove. And then a lot of the trackways were going along the easement of the power lines. And Bobo talks about it in a few episodes of Finding Bigfoot. He calls those easements of power lines Bigfoot Highways. A lot of Bigfoot sightings there, tracks there. It's a clear, direct path where things are cleared, making travel easier. And let's face it, people really don't use them. They don't follow the roads per se, most of them. And usually people are only on those to repair the lines once in a while. I don't know. I'll follow an easement road once in a while to get back into some cool places. I got on Google Maps and looked where those two large sets of power lines were going, and they go from the Huntsville area over to Woodruff. And I just want to point out that we get a lot of Bigfoot sightings down in Huntsville and the community surrounding Huntsville down by the Pineview area, especially in the wintertime. Last winter I got a report. I also got Bigfoot track report from a guy that lives there that has a couple of acres that border public forest. And then the year before I got a couple of sightings out of there. One of them, a woman that actually lives in Huntsville, has a couple acres of horse property. She got a hold of us and said her horses were being harassed by Bigfoot and wanted to know how to get rid of it without pissing it off. Well, those power lines, that easement goes right down into Huntsville. I mean, what a great way for it to travel if needs to. Of course it doesn't need to. I mean, they're like sharks and water in their own habitat. But yeah, this canyon that we're in and the forest, just dozens and dozens of Bigfoot sightings that go back over 100 years when the settlers first came here. I hope this gives you guys kind of a perspective that happened over like a 6-week period, the last couple of months here in the northern part of Utah, I feel like we have been tracking the movements of 2 giant male Sasquatch in northern Utah. I hope you guys enjoyed a look at a Bigfoot sighting hotspot. Make sure you guys go down into the description of this video and go watch these videos for yourself. I'm just not making this stuff up. We have the evidence and the videos showing everything that I just talked about. Keep on watching. We're going to keep on squatching.